What is the worst case of psycho-overprotective parenting that you've ever seen? My ex's mom screamed in my face legit inches from my face that I was stealing her son away when he bought his house. It was his decision to buy a house and he had wanted me to live with him. The location of the house, you ask? Directly across the street from where his parents live. My former roommate's parents were extremely protective of my roommate. Once I woke up to 3 calls and 4 texts from her mom asking if my roommate was in the room. I replied back yes. Later that day my roommate explained to me that there was a girl murdered in North Carolina that fit her description and her parents wanted to make sure she was alive. We go to school over 400 miles away from NC. That made more sense than others in this thread until the 400 miles away part. I don't know about the worst, since my parents were pretty good about other stuff, but anything to do with fricking was a major no-go. I remember them trying to give a talk to my oldest sister, who was 8 or 9 at the time, making me 4 or 5. We got to the part where the guy puts the thing he pees out of into a hole I was not aware existed, and I ran away screaming. That subject was never revisited. They pulled me out of middle school physical ed because it was too early, and my high school taught abstinence. I thought that all pee, not just chili pee, was illegal until college. My friend's mom. They're great people and I love them like a second family, but she was overprotective. 4th grade, his mom cut the tail off of the Nightcrawler action figure I got him for his birthday for being demonic. 5th grade, she throws away the medieval Spawn action figure I got him for being Spawn. High school, she throws away the vintage Faster Pussycat shirt I gave him. His dad's cool though, he'd watch Beavis and Butthead with us when we were 10. I graduated high school a year and a few months ago. A good friend of mine was a freshman my senior year. Now she's a junior and taking college classes at my college. She's not allowed to talk to me because I graduated. She still does in person, but not as much as we used to be able to. She does realize her parents won't know. One time, when I was about 6, I was playing on a playground. Anyway, I went down this tube slide thing. It was totally covered, and this little girl walked in front of it. Well, surprise surprise, I hit her. Her mother got super mad at me and told me that I should pay more attention in the future. B. I was on a slide. B hates slides. I had a couple of sisters that worked for me. They were from a pretty strict Southern Baptist family. They wore floor-length skirts, etc. Anyway, the youngest of the two was a very avid reader. She was always looking for new stuff to read, but her parents were super strict about what she could read, so she read a lot of Narnia, Lotta, other fiction with strong religious undertones. I grew up in a strict Baptist home, too. I felt like I knew what she was going through. We got to talking about books one day and I told her that she had to read To Kill a Mockingbird, as it was a classic that should be read by anyone who loved books. I brought her my copy from home and gave it to her to borrow. The very next day, she returned it and said that her parents wouldn't let her read it because it had the word kill in the title and that she wasn't allowed to read gratuitously violent books. A friend of mine had very overprotective and religious parents. He didn't have a door on his bedroom or bathroom. When you went over there you had to take your shoes and socks off. I understand shoes, but how are socks any more dirty than bare feet? He never got dropped anywhere either, always had mom or dad there. Bathroom. That is truly weird, man. What is sad is they think they are helping him, but really they are crippling him. They are crippling him socially and making him incompetent. He will have a hard time adjusting, not saying he can't, just harder. My friend has to be home before 8 PM maybe 9 PM every night. Can't go out on Sundays because of church. Can't date anyone. Can't move out because his parents would take his car, his job, family business, his school funding, and completely cut him off. He is 21 years old. He once told me that his parents sat him down and had a serious discussion about why his credit score was 666. Yep. There's a child I know whose mother is so overbearing. I look after the kids in church so the adults can listen and pay attention. I tried speaking to this little boy and engaging with him, but he was awfully unresponsive and uncommunicative. His mother told me he was like this but informed me she never ever leaves him and never will. There's no wonder he doesn't respond well to others when there are no others present. She stayed for the whole session, defeating the purpose of the creche. Now is time for snacks. There are some biscuits. The boy eats his. The mother then takes him saying, "I need to wipe his hands because he is probably allergic to everything in that biscuit." Oh, is he? Don't let him have the biscuit. If he is, wiping his hands after the fact isn't going to help much. She was annoying. One of my friends really liked Pokemon as a child. His parents tore his Pokemon cards up in front of him, burned them, and told him they represent the devil. He was like 8. I was friends in high school with this kid. We'll call him Zach. Zach's parents were super Christian and conservative. They never let him play video games or watch anything other than kids shows. They also refused to let him go to physical ed. When he was 19, he called me in the middle of the night because his girlfriend wanted pads for her period, but he had no idea what those were. If they found out he had played video games at a friend's house, they would ground him. He wasn't allowed to be out anywhere after 7, unless he was with his parents. When he was 19 and living away from his parents, they called him and demanded he stop talking to his gay friend. The end result was the most sheltered, ignorant human being I have ever met. Don't even get me started on the fricking parents themselves. They never got him vaccinated and barely went to the doctor themselves. They were anti-abortion, gay rights, not just marriage, rights, and anti-immigration. Once they found out me and my family were Muslim, they tried their freaking best to keep me and their son separated. I knew a girl whose mother was a nurse at an OBGYN office. She would tell me how her mother would give her pelvic exams at home and often check her anus. Being young, I knew it was weird, but didn't understand the full scope of it all. She was the eldest of 5 children in a Hispanic household. This is only important because of the roles they tend to play where I live. And as a result, she was in charge of all household duties, cooking, cleaning, making the beds, everything. She eventually started going a little crazy and attacked her sister. Before the attack, her mother stopped letting me come over because she had told her mom that I knew about the exams. She told my friend that I was a bad influence. She continued with the story and told every one of the parents of my friends in our class that it was me making up these stories and encouraging her to behave erratically. I caught up with her several years later and she was very unbalanced. I told her that I now realize that her mother was physical shaming and assaulting her, and that she needed to tell someone. She told me her mother still does it, and checks to see if she is a virgin. Her mother caught us outside talking and called the cops. They came, and I told them everything that had been going on. My friend denied saying anything to me, and no one believed me. I was told to go home and never contact the family again. She committed suicide a few days later. No one ever believed me. Her family says I talked her into doing it. That's horrible. I'm so sorry you not only lost a friend, but were put into such a situation for trying to help. Definitely the saddest story here. There was a kid in the year below me in school when I was 10 who had no friends or social skills whatsoever, like he just played with a ball all day. So one day at lunch my friend who was a bit of a dong snatched his ball off him to tease him, and not 1 second later did this kid's mother literally burst out of a nearby bush and screamed at my friend to give him back his ball. It was 1 PM. She had been there all day. What in the frick, lol. My parents are super strict with me. I am the youngest of 3. There is an age gap of 12 and 10 between my older siblings and I. My parents were not really strict with my older siblings as they are with me. I can understand why, because my sister ran off and got married and pregnant. She is now in an abusive relationship that is very much poisonous. My brother is clinically depressed and spends his days at work or in his room. I understand the reasons why my parents want to keep a close leash on me, but sometimes I feel very suffocated. I was not allowed to go to the mall with my friends alone until I was 17 years old. I would always have to beg my parents to let me go to the school dances and school events. My brother and my sister even agree with my parents about not letting me go anywhere. I feel like this way of living has taken a toll on my life. I live in America and I would always see my friends hanging out with each other at the mall or at a restaurant. They would post it on Facebook and would always wish that it was me who was able to hang out with friends. I would just lay in bed all day and not do anything productive. Eventually, when I did start going out with friends, my mom would only let me leave for 3 hours at a time. She would start calling me and blowing not only my phone, but also my friend's phone. I was really embarrassed, so I just never went out. I developed anxiety from this, which I still suffer from. Bottom line, let your kids have some fun and just trust them that they are going to do the right thing. I once went to bed with a very beautiful girl who happened to be homeschooled as a child until she was 13 before she went to public school. It happened 3 separate occasions that we were in the middle of fooling around and then she would just hit a wall and stop moving forward, and so I would stop. She explained the attitude that she grew up with about freaking, and she would just clamp up and be on the brink of tears, and I would just be telling her it was fine and not to be embarrassed. It just blew my mind that at 24 this beautiful, young, well-traveled, educated woman still couldn't be physically intimate with someone past a certain point because of some mental block her parents had instilled in her. Crap's weird. Parents need to stop teaching their daughters dumb crap about freaking. If not for the sake of their self-confidence issues, then at least to stop cockblocking me. That's pretty much reflects on society to certain degrees. Showing violence in movies or TV is not such a big deal, but showing a nipple or a freaking scene causes outrage. My boyfriend's mom was convinced he couldn't speak due to a learning disability or developmental problem, so she took him to a specialist. He spent 10 minutes alone with him, came out and told her that yes, he could speak, but she never gave him the opportunity. She was so obsessed with anticipating his needs that he never had to ask for anything for the first few years of his life. It explains everything. I stopped inviting my son's friend over because his mother had so many rules. He could not eat hot dogs or grapes. Choking hazard. No hamburgers at restaurants or at our house because they might not be cooked through. No playing outside without an adult present to watch. This was through 6th grade. Even. I could go on. She'd email us during the school pancake feed fundraiser to tell us that she was watching and thought they probably kept the batter cold enough to prevent salmonella, so it's okay that our son ate the pancakes. That kind of thing. The great thing is, her kid was really pretty normal. In contrast, I invited another friend over for him, and they were outside monkeying around and got a kite caught in the tree. His mom came to get him, saw it up there, scoffed at their efforts to fish it out with a rake, and ordered her son to climb up and get it. He hesitated and she was like, "Get up there." So he scrabbled up there like a monkey while I thought, yes, this is a normal childhood. The people I babysit for. Oh god, I could tell 1000 stories. The kids just turned 9 and 10. I was reprimanded by the father for letting them sit in the YMCA lobby unattended while I went out to my car to get something. Also, they live in a cul-de-sac with a giant yard that's shared with all the neighbors. There are kids out there every day. They are not allowed to play with them. They have to stay inside and read. Emo kids should regularly get cuts and bruises from playing outside. These kids freak out if they get a scratch. We were at the park and the little girl picked a bug bite and it started bleeding. She freaked out. "I need a band-aid." I told her I don't have any band-aids. "She'll live," she cried. From a tiny dot of blood. The children are not allowed to say fart under any circumstances. They can't watch Nickelodeon. Only PBS Kids. I was spoken to for allowing one of them to take out a SpongeBob book from the library. Gimme a break. Sounds like the parents could write 101 ways to raise a serial killer. Kid I went to high school with was constantly grounded, and for really dumb things as far as I can tell. He hardly got to come out and do stuff around the neighborhood. It seemed pretty crazy at the time, but I guess not psycho based on what I know can happen. Despite living the suburban white picket fence dream, my next door neighbors don't let their 9-year-old out of their sight, ever. EVER. Play dates are completely supervised and rare. Roving groups of kids his age are everywhere. Parks a block away in any direction, and he'll be twirling a hula hoop around alone in his backyard. When he loses a toy over the fence, he can't come to our door to ask for it back without mommy, like we're going to John Wayne Gacy him or something. I hope when he eventually murders his folks, he spares us. Live in Midwest and have several. 1. 12-year-old girl lives next door to me. For our summer block party, the parents drive 4 houses up the street to attend. At sunset, the wife screamed bloody murder at their daughter to stop playing so they could go home and put on long sleeves pants and prevent mosquito bites. It was like 100 degrees out, so I'd choose bug bites over pants and long sleeves any day. Mosquitoes can also bite though clothes, so I'm not sure what they were solving. Drove her back to house 4 houses down, changed, then came back. Same wife made her husband leave about 1 hour after they returned because he had had 3 beers over 5 hours and she doesn't allow him to have more than 3. 2. A girlfriend's parents were very strict. Not religious, just crazy. They would only let her ride her bike around in their yard, regardless of age, because there was a highway nearby. This was in rural Missouri, about 2 hours from a major city in a town of about 2,000 people. The highway was a 55-mile-per-hour rural highway that has hardly anybody driving on it. My aunt doesn't let my cousin run. My cousin, is asthmatic, so obviously there have to be some precautions. But no running whatsoever. My aunt even went as far as telling my cousin that she had a dead lung, a lie, and she could kill the other one if she ran and did exercises, an even lie. As you can guess, my cousin is growing up to be a chubby, scared girl. At college orientation, they had all of us incoming freshmen and our parents in a huge auditorium. After the presentation on stuff we needed to know prior to the start of the school year, they opened it up for Q&A. So they call on this woman who raised her hand, and this woman, who was dead center in this huge auditorium, stands up and proceeds to ramble on and on in a quivering voice, soon reduced to all-out tears, about all of her fears of all the horrible things that might happen to her son while he's at college. What if he's in the hospital and she's never notified and her son is dying without her by his side? What if he falls out of his bunk bed and is unconscious in his dorm room and the university doesn't notice he's missing? What if, etc, etc. It's a super nerdy, nervous, mother hen type woman. Her husband and her poor son are shrinking down in their chairs. The poor son doesn't take his eyes off of his feet the whole time. I felt so very bad for that poor boy. Starting college is nerve-wracking enough, and here this poor kid gets to start off his college experience by possibly being known as that kid with the overprotective hysterical mother at orientation. I'm a guy, for starters, so I sort of understand my dad being nervous about me seeing anything having to do with freaking. He was a bit of a wild child. He did every drug imaginable in late high school and college, and his friends got into lots of trouble, so I know why he was so scared I would act out and be a crappy kid like him. But I was always such a relaxed and easy child to deal with. He had no reason to be so scared. Anyway, he was super overprotective of me seeing anything carnal. He wouldn't let me hang around with a girl at the house at all, even if he was around. He wouldn't let me see Starship Troopers when I was 15 years old because there were boobs in it, and wouldn't let me watch a show on TBS because there were 2 people making out in it, fully clothed. He was like that for years, constantly screening any movie or TV show I wanted to watch. I was secretly laughing at him at the time because I cashed in my V card with both genders the year I was 15. One of my friends absolutely has to call his parents every single day. If he can't make it one day, his parents will send him onto a guilt trip. To date, he always has to ask parents before deciding on smallest of things. He is in his 30s now. My parents had software on the computer that collected everything me and my brother would ever type into it and send it in a daily email. When I found out in high school, I felt violated and upset, and that is exactly when I stopped talking to my parents about relationships. I had a boyfriend at the time and my mother read all of our AIM messages. Great, I lost a lot of trust in them for keeping that from me. It still disgusts me. My parents were always very overprotective, but this one just felt so invasive. My grandmother was very strict with my mother and aunts. She controlled what they ate and wore and who they spoke to. They weren't allowed sleepovers or sweets, or to have an opinion about anything. They were constantly punished for normal little kid behavior, having nightmares, wanting to dance, having friends, until it twisted them all up. They were looking forward to college, as they were excellent students, so they could finally get away and live normal lives. My mother was told she was too immature for college and had to stay home and go to community college, even though she got a full scholarship to her 4-year school not far away. So she ran away, 3,000 miles away, and went nuts. She never went back home no matter how difficult things got because she didn't want grandma to break our spirits. 2. My cousin hand feed her son until he was 4. He was placed in a high chair and she feed him with a spoon. I was shocked and asked why. She told me that he made a mess on the floor when he fed himself. WTF. Of course he did. My kids started feeding themselves the day they ate solid food. Fine motor control is not an accident and must be practiced. I also had crayons and paper on my coffee table for 10 years. Sheesh. Side note, her son is super creepy. Long story, but I would not leave a female alone around him. Nothing concrete but big on the creepy vibes. We have time. My girlfriend just went to college in a nearby city. Her parents constantly make her take pictures of where she is to prove that she's being good. If she studies with a guy, they call her a S. Last night she didn't respond to the text telling her to send a picture because she was asleep, so her parents activated the GPS tracker on her phone to find out where she was. She was sleeping in another dorm because it was closer to where she was at the time. They threatened to pull her out of school and make her go to community college so that they can keep a closer eye on her. Every time she sends them a picture of where she is, if it's not in her dorm or a classroom, they call her the S of college. She thought going to college was going to be the end of their crap. Sorry, half venting, half response. I would tell them to frick off. Go get a student loan, part-time job and be done. I'm paying student loans. Lot better than that mental abuse. There was a girl in my town who ended up getting a restraining order against her mother. The mother would make some sort of excuse to get into the daughter's high school, lie about her daughter having a learning disability, then sit next to her in class and make sure she wasn't talking to anyone during class or at lunch. The woman would even do things like emptying the girl's book bag and search through her things in the middle of the school. As far as I know, the girl ended up living a fairly normal life afterwards, but her mother definitely made her have some major social anxiety issues. I don't know if it's the worst case, but I take my 2 kids to the park, 2 and 5 years old, and get the side eye from moms like I'm hovering over their kids on the playground. No, I have to make sure my 2-year-old doesn't decide she's going down the fire pole. Stop treating all dudes like diddlers and lurkers. My ex and I were in college, and we both still lived with our parents. We went to school locally, and she was 19. I was 21 at the time, and they were so overprotective, and they mistrusted her so much by default, that when she started middle school, every night, they would shove chairs into the doorknob, sort of blocking the door from opening. They started doing this without her showing any inclination to sneaking out or sneaking people in as a child, and they continued to do it well into her college years, and then BSP. Needless to say, crap got weird and incredibly frustrating. A guy right next door has an overprotective mother. During weekdays he'll be locked inside with his housemaid while both parents work. He's an only child, so he only socialized with other people at school. During weekends, his parents sent him to tons and tons of academic and non-academic courses. When we played on the street, we sometimes hear him screaming in his house when he's alone. His parents only allowed him to play with an equally academically accomplished kid next door. These two had very limited contact with other kids. A student I tutored over the summer. I honestly felt terrible about it, but I took the job so I could be sure to take it easy on him. Freaking 15-year-old boy whose mother had him meeting with 4 tutors 3 times a week to pre-teach him his sophomore year curriculum so he could, and I quote, boost our GPA so we can get into Stanford. B. What's this week crap? You're learning to speak French? If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.